Well, let's talk funding because funding a project like a browser is a challenge, right? Because you're either a company like Google where the browser is a thing you do, but it's not your primary business. Google, if they got rid of Chrome, they have everything else they do. They have the search engine, they have YouTube, they have Gmail, everything else. And then you have, obviously, Mozilla, where they started off with a donation based model and now they're basically a Google sub brand. And then you have models like Brave, for example, where Brave has. They have, like support contracts and they also have their crypto model as well. And then you have other companies like Opera does their stuff. And like how do you make a browser that is actually fundable? Like how do you fund a browser? And obviously you're still fairly early on, so maybe look, maybe in the long run this doesn't work, but at least the approach that's being taken now.
Right. So what we're doing right now is that we are just taking sponsorships
Mhm,
and donations.
mhm,
So sponsorships are some company or an individual decides that they want to donate some amount
mhm,
towards our development because they like what we're doing for one reason or another.
mhm,
And so they give us the money. We put their logo on our website. We say thank you,
mhm,
and then there are no strings attached beyond that point.
mhm,
So we don't have any kind of monetization plans. In fact, the official line is no monetization of our users ever. And I know that perhaps in the last week or so, people have been betrayed on the concept of never ever will we do this.
mhm,
But I don't think we should become cynical just because a big corporation goes back on a promise.
mhm,
We don't want to monetize our users. um, because we are ourselves users that don't want to be monetized. And by monetize in this case, what we mean specifically is that we don't want to sort of turn our users into a product for somebody else to buy, right?
mhm, mhm, mhm,
It doesn't mean that that we wouldn't try to sell a coffee cup or a T-shirt someday to a willing buyer, but we're not selling out our users, I suppose.
mhm,
And so we just seek sponsorships and donations from companies and users who want this to exist, who think that this is a good idea.
mhm,
And we know, of course, that this will never raise $1 billion like selling default search placement would.
mhm,
And we have made peace with that. And that is sort of why we have a very small team with a small budget,
mhm,
and we're trying to engineer something that a small team with a small budget can maintain in perpetuity. Um, Simply because we know from the get-go that we're not gonna we're not gonna find some way to sell our users. So, our users is our only real asset that we have that we could sell, right?
mhm, mhm.
Because we are a permissively licensed open source project. Anybody can take it and build a better browser
What
if they
license
have
does
some
it use,
idea.
by the way?
Oh, it's a two-clause BSD.
Okay.
So, and people ask about that too sometimes, and they say, "Well, what if Google just takes your code and makes a better product?" Then I would just say, "Good on them for making a better product." We'll do our best to compete with their better product, but at the end of the day, that's the setup.
Mhm,
It's a permissively licensed project, and we are committing 100% to not selling out our users to anybody, and instead funding it with sponsorships and voluntary donations.
mhm,
And so far, it's been really quite nice and easy to raise money. People are really hyped on the idea,
mhm, mhm,
and a lot of companies are getting behind the idea. I think everybody has their own motivations, but when I speak to our corporate sponsors, there is a common theme of feeling perhaps a little bit concerned that there's very centralized control over the web platform.
mhm, mhm.
So you have all these companies building on top of the web platform, and they are all at the mercy of Google, essentially deciding what happens with the web platform. And so if your entire business sits on top of the web platform, it's in your interest that that platform be um, remain open, let's say, and remain vibrant and remain something that can actually be implemented anew if the existing players stop caring about it or do something objectionable, let's say.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where we're at. So we're just talking to companies, new companies all the time, and um, just finding a lot of excitement about the idea.
Mhm.
And a lot of the reactions that I get when I meet with people is that like, "Oh, well, we didn't even realize that would be possible." Like, you you can build a new browser? We thought we were kinda stuck with the situation that we had, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so people are enthusiastic, and of course, there's been a lot of skepticism about the feasibility of it. But I find that over time, as we've been doing this, we've been kind of melting hearts around the industry, like people seeing our progress, and um, slowly they start to admit that, okay, well, maybe it is possible to build one of these things.
Mm.
That's been lovely to see as well.
For anyone
Uh,
just listening, when you mentioned corporate sponsors, platinum tier right now is Futo and Shopify. Platinum is that 100K or above?
that's right.
Yes. Okay. Um, Gold is Proton VPN. I don't know who the AHR yet. I've never heard of that company. I don't know what they do. What do
It's
they do?
RFs. They are an SEO and
Oh.
web
I
tech
see,
company.
I see, I see. And there's a bunch of other like silver sponsors and bronze. Actually, wait, is that Mitchell Hashimoto? Is that the ghosty guy?
The one and only, yes.
Yeah, okay. I thought the name sounded familiar. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Sorry, I just want to bring that up just so people are sort of aware of just there are like companies involved in this, or like, companies who sponsored this who you're aware of. It's not just it's not just individual donors, right? Like there are companies that have put their support behind this project and I guess are at least trying to make something happen here.
Right, exactly. And I should also mention that my co-founder for the nonprofit, Chris Wanstroth,
Mm,
he seeded our corporation with $1 million as
mm,
well to get us off the ground, and then we've been raising from other companies on top of that.
mm, mm,
And it's not raising venture capital in the traditional way that people do it.
mm,
We're actually just um, raising sponsorships.
mm, mm.
So the only thing we're selling here is the logo on our website, and we will say thank you on x.com and in our newsletter and video and such. Um, and yeah, this it's just it's, perhaps a lot of it is that we're just in the right place at the right time, doing something that a lot of people were not expecting to happen, and when they hear about it, they just instantly get excited about it.
So with funding this project, how much leeway do you try to keep to make sure you don't have to just suddenly get rid of people?
Right. So we've committed to maintaining 18 months
Mhm.
of runway, which means that if people just stop sponsoring us tomorrow, nobody renews their sponsorships, all recurring donations stop. Um, let's say we can go for 18 months
Mhm.
with our current burn rate of expenses and salaries and such.
Mhm.
And so we're going to try to maintain that, which means that we don't add people to our team unless we can afford to.
Right.
Um, and I think that's just a reasonable way to do this because we could certainly build faster if we decided, let's just go for it. Like
Right,
let's
you take the
hire,
the Silicon Valley approach and burn all your money and then hope
yeah,
someone acquires you.
exactly. And we're not doing that. Um, and I think it creates a better environment for everybody. And sure, it slows us down a little bit, but as I keep saying, like this is about finding a sustainable way of doing this,
Mhm.
right? It's not about building a browser as fast as possible. It is about building something that a small team can maintain forever.
Mhm.
Um, and I guess it's never really been done before because all the teams that really build browsers have been traditionally super well funded.
Mhm.
They have some kind of backing in the billions. And yeah, so this is just something that we have to do. We have to stay very, very calm and composed with expenses.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but it's not just about the money, it's also about architectural decisions and choices when we work on the software.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, like not taking on, for example, complexity that um, would be inordinately difficult to maintain.
Mhm.
So we, I guess, a practical example of that is if something is unimportant, maybe we don't put a bunch of effort into optimizing it.
Mm.
Um, and the obvious example is JavaScript execution. So in the major browsers, you have hundreds of man years and PhDs poured into JavaScript performance.
Right.
Because I think around 2009 or 2008, something like that, they decided to have a performance war between the major browsers, because they put out these JavaScript benchmarks, and then it was just on for a decade where they just kept building more and more complicated just-in-time compilers to beat each other on these benchmarks.
Mhm.
And it's, like incredible feats of engineering have taken place here. But looking at this from our perspective, where we're just coming into this, the idea of like burning a million lines of code on optimizing JavaScript compiler, um, when JavaScript right now is around 3% of our execution time, it doesn't feel like the most important thing to do.
Right.
Um, and it's certainly possible, or it is certainly the case that there are websites that rely on fast JavaScript, but
Mhm.
the vast majority of the web, it's kind of not relevant. And so, at least at the moment, we have to choose to optimize for most of the web
Mhm.
and to
Mhm.
optimize for sort of simplicity, if you will, maintainability in our architecture.
Mhm.
And then, that sort of idea spread throughout the entire project where we just don't overcomplicate things in the interest of keeping it maintainable.
Mhm. So to keep the team small, you have to design things to make it so it's actually maintainable by a small team, effectively.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know exactly where the threshold is, but I've learned from experience working on much larger teams that at a certain point, you become this kind of project where people silo themselves,
Mm.
where you no longer have a person working on the project, but they're working on a subsystem in the project.
Right.
Um, and to some extent, like everybody becomes experts on subsystems that they're focusing on. But
Mhm.
I would like our project to have a lot of people that are just comfortable going all over the place. And the only way that that's really achievable is if the thing is small or small enough that you can do that.
Right.
In a 10 million line code base like WebKit, nobody's an expert on the whole thing. Probably nobody's even truly proficient in the whole thing.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's something that we're trying to design for as well, to have a code base. When I say that it's maintainable by a small team, I really, I guess I mean exactly that, that it is maintainable by a small team that can operate across the code base productively.